Good morning, everyone. Welcome in. It is Championship Sunday here on the Women's Basketball Rundown. I am Kadarius Washington, and it is a pleasure to have you in. We had a good slate of semifinal games yesterday, so we're going to go ahead and get into them. Beginning with the SEC, South Carolina took down Oklahoma convincingly. 93 to 79. Joyce Edwards led all scorers with 21 points and 5 rebounds, and Malaysia Fawiley had 19 points, and both of them came off the bench. As a matter of fact, 56 total bench points for the Gamecocks and 50 paint points, and Miriam Dauda had a huge defensive game for South Carolina as well. And the Gamecocks advanced to an SEC record 6th straight conference title game and its 10th overall. The other semifinal game was Texas and LSU. Texas took down the Tigers 56 to 49. It was a shorthanded LSU team. Of course, no Flau'jae Johnson, and you got Anissa Morrow, who exited the game in the third quarter with a foot injury and did not return. And LSU head coach Kim Mulkey said that Morrow actually re-aggravated a foot sprain, but she should be good to go for the NCAA tournament. And Madison Booker, the SEC Player of the Year, had a game-high 25 points, 18 of them coming in the first half, and shot 52% from the field for the game, which sets up South Carolina and Texas Part 3 for the SEC Championship. Of course, in the first meeting in January, South Carolina won that one 67 to 50, and then in the second meeting, Texas won 66 to 62. And Madison Booker, as we said, struggled in that game. She had 7 points and shot 3 for 19 from the field and 1 for 14 alone in the first half. And Texas in that game shot 28% from the field, while South Carolina shot 51%. But in the second game, Madison Booker had 20 points and 11 rebounds, and South Carolina shot 37% from the field in that game. And Texas, as a matter of fact, had been on a 15-game win streak since that first South Carolina loss. And it's going to be an interesting matchup, too, with Madison Booker, who was the Big 12 tournament MVP last year, and Malaysia Fawiley being the reigning SEC tournament MVP. So that's going to be an interesting matchup there as far as the two sophomores are concerned. All right, on to the ACC. NC State took down North Carolina 66 to 55. Isaiah James scored a game-high 19 points, but a scary little scene in the first quarter as she exited the game after a hard fall, but she ultimately returned to the game. And it was a very poor shooting day for North Carolina. They only shot 28% from the field, and pretty much NC State pretty much dominated the game as far as that's concerned. But North Carolina right now is a 4 seed according to Bracketology, and our other ACC semifinal was Duke and Notre Dame. Duke defeating Notre Dame 61 to 56. And I said this on my Twitter at CW Talk Sports, at CWTALKS Sports. I'm running out of cases for Notre Dame here. I'm running out of cases to consider this Notre Dame team a legitimate championship contender because they are just too inconsistent. And Notre Dame, who was already on fraud watch, as I said on previous programs, you can go ahead and check that out on YouTube. They were already on fraud watch entering into this ACC tournament and NCAA tournament, and now they're going to be heading into the tournament losing 3 of their last 5 games after previously being ranked an AP top-ranked team in the AP poll, which feels like an eternity ago. So that's going to set up Duke and NC State for the ACC championship game. And the last time they met was the Play for K game, which NC State won 89 to 83, and Isaiah James scored a career-high 36 points there. All right, so Big Ten semifinals. USC defeated Michigan 82-70. And I'll tell you this, Kiki Ariafin has really come to life as of recent, and especially in the tournament. She has averaged 22-9 in her last 5 games and looking like the WNBA prospect we thought she would be at the beginning of the season. And of course, having Ariafin there is helpful for USC whenever Juju is having an off night, and that was the case in this game. But she did have 20 and 11, but she shot 7 for 17 from the field and missed all of her three-point attempts. But Kiki Ariafin had 25 and 11 in this game, so that's a good job there. And this was a game where they really flexed their depth with the starting and the bench, and they closed the game on a 22-10 run. Silas Swartz, the freshman for Michigan, had 26 points, and I'll tell you this, Michigan, they held their own against USC and kept it competitive for as long as they could, and they're going to be a feisty team in the NCAA tournament, and they have been all season against the top opponents, even dating back to their season opener against South Carolina. But with all these freshmen here, as far as this Michigan team is concerned, they are going to be a good team for these next couple of years, so we'll have to pay attention to them. And Michigan right now is a 7 seed according to the Bracketology. And the other semifinal game, you had UCLA defeating Ohio State 75-64, and London Jones, the guard for UCLA, went off in this game, making 6 3-pointers and scoring a game-high 22 points. And this game overall was not really competitive. UCLA had 4 starters in double digits, and Jelani Cambridge was the only Ohio State player in double figures. But Ohio State right now is a 4 seed in the Bracketology, which sets up an incredible UCLA-USC Part 3. And USC won both of those meetings 71-60 on the 13th of February, and then at the beginning of the month, they won 80-67. And as I mentioned, Juju Watkins in those 2 games averaged 45% from the field, 50% from 3 with 34 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists, 5 blocks, and I think she registered a steal in both of those games. And this is the 5th time that the two faced off each other in a 3-game scenario, and there's only been one 3-game sweep in this series, and that is UCLA back in 2022. All right, on to the Big 12. TCU takes down West Virginia 71-65. Haley Van Lith had 19 points, 6 rebounds, and 8 assists. Sedana Prince had 18 points and 16 rebounds for a double-double there. This is their first 30-win season in program history. I have really enjoyed watching this TCU team all season. An incredible story, and despite them being a high seed, I really think that this is a good little Cinderella story here to get us going for the NCAA tournament. And West Virginia right now is a 6 seed, and then Baylor in the other semifinal game defeated Oklahoma State, and they needed overtime to do that. 84-74, and the story in that one, Aaronette Vonleh, a career-high 37 points and 9 rebounds. My goodness. A very close game between the two. Neither team led by more than 9 points in regulation, and then the largest lead was ultimately 10 in favor of the Bears. Staley Hurd for Oklahoma State at 25 points and 12 rebounds. And Oklahoma right now is a 7 seed, setting up Baylor and TCU in the Big 12 championship. And TCU won both meetings in this season, 85-70. At the end of January to end a 35-year losing streak to the Bears, if you could believe that. And then last Sunday, TCU won 51-48 against Baylor to win the Big 12 regular season title. And this is the 3rd time that the schools have faced off against each other in the postseason, and Baylor won both of those meetings, and that will take care of it for the Power 4 as far as the semifinals are concerned. And you really got 3 in-state rivalries, 3 of the 4 games being in-state rivalries for the championship. You got Duke and NC State, you got UCLA and USC, and you got Baylor and TCU. So that's going to be an incredible slate of games. And of course, Texas, South Carolina, as we get you going here on Championship Sunday. And we also got some Big East quarterfinals from yesterday. UConn defeating St. John's 71-40. I tried to get into that game, but I ultimately just turned the game off at the third quarter because UConn was up pretty big in that one. And then you got Villanova defeating Marquette 73-66. Creighton taking down Georgetown. Pretty exciting game there, 72-70. And then you have Seton Hall coming from behind to defeat Xavier 48-40. And then today, later on in the semifinals of the Big East, you've got Villanova taking on UConn winning both of those meetings, and then you got Seton Hall and Creighton, and Creighton winning both of those meetings as well. All right, some other bracketology updates for you here. All the 1 seeds heading into the day, regardless of what happens, are pretty much locked in. But the 2 matchups to monitor here, Texas, South Carolina, and USC and UCLA, those are the 2 games that are ultimately going to decide the number 1 overall seed. But I think Texas has the easier route here because all they got to do is win, and they will be in good shape as far as the number 1 overall seed is concerned. And then Baylor right now is a top 16 team regardless of a result, and TCU could ultimately become a 2 seed with a win there in the Big 12 championship game, and the Atlantic 10 Conference becomes a 2-bid league now following Richmond's loss to St. Joseph's in the semifinals, which is bad news for Virginia Tech in the ACC, who would be the first team out as far as that scenario is concerned. Notre Dame is a number 2 seed, but they're currently number 7 overall in the standings. And then Tennessee Tech becomes the first automatic bid of the women's tournament with an overtime win over Lindenwood to win the Ohio Valley Conference Championship game. All right, so your schedule of championship games today. You've got Duke and NC State. That game is at 1 p.m. on ESPN. And then you've got Texas and South Carolina. That game is at 3 p.m. on ESPN. Then UCLA and USC. That's at 4:30 p.m. on CBS. And then you've got Baylor taking on TCU. That game is at 5 p.m. on ESPN. And you've got 4 more automatic bids up for grabs today. You got Chattanooga and Tennessee in the SoCon Conference. That game is at noon on ESPNU. Then you've got Oral Roberts taking on South Dakota State for the Summit League title. That's at 4 p.m. on CBS Sports Network. You've got St. Joseph's taking on George Mason for the Atlantic 10 title at 4 p.m. on ESPNU. And then you've got Longwood taking on High Point for the Big South title at 6 p.m. That game is also on ESPN2. And you've got 2 Big East semifinal games today. You got Villanova and UConn. That game is at 2:30 p.m. on Fox. And then Seton Hall and Creighton at 5 p.m. That game is also on Fox, setting up for the Big East Championship game, which will take place on tomorrow night. Well, friends, that will do it for the women's basketball rundown. Be sure to follow me on Twitter or X at CW Talk Sports. That's CWTALKS Sports. And also follow me on Bluesky, which is also at CWTALKS Sports. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see y'all the next time. Enjoy the games, everyone. Peace.